Welcome back. In this section, we're going to talk a little bit about student development and experiential learning. So, what is student development? Student development theory researcher Rogers defined student development as the ways that a student grows, progresses, or increases his developmental capabilities as a result of enrollment in an institution of higher education. So why might this be important to coaches, and what is our role in this development? It guides the way that we interact and communicate with our students. Knowing that they are still developing and learning, this dictates our interactions as we are coaching them. Almost all of Triangle's volunteers are not professionals in student affairs, so offering a basic understanding of student development and the theory behind it aims to help you execute your coaching roles more effectively. So with student development, we also have learning cycles. David Kolb developed a learning model in the 1980s, which is based on human development and learning research. His theory says that people perceive information through one of two primary methods, either concrete experience or abstract conceptualization. They process information via reflective observation or through active experimentation. Kolb's theory states that each learning process should include a concrete experience. That experience leads students to a period of reflection, that reflective observation on the right hand of the screen. And from that period of reflection, students begin to conceptualize their learning in abstract terms by drawing conclusions about their experience. This stage puts them into the final phase of active experimentation, where they are able to test out what they've learned or observed. The theory is cyclical, as active experimentation will lead to more concrete experiences and more impactful learning. Our role as coaches is to help guide the students through this process. So if they host an event for philanthropy and maybe it goes really well, or maybe it doesn't go so great, our role as the coach is to help them through that reflective observation. Let's review. Let's talk about, what did we learn here? And how can we plan and learn for the future when we do it again? Often our students fall into a, oh my gosh, I failed, I can never do it again mentality. And that's where we come in as the coach to really help them follow this learning cycle and make sure that they are actually learning from what they do and not afraid to fail and then plan and try again. Sometimes this might seem tedious and challenging, but this is the experience that we really want to make sure our students are having. So let's talk for a minute about adolescent brain development and decision making. I'm sure you've heard at some point that the average human brain is not fully developed until about age 25. And this means that some people's brains might fully develop around 22, others maybe not until 30. So the cerebellum, which is the part of the brain responsible for risk-taking and pleasure-seeking, is fully developed by the teen years, which is where most of our students come to us. And the frontal lobe, which is the part of the brain responsible for informed decision-making, inhibiting cues, and managing your emotions, doesn't fully develop until years later. So how does this impact us when we're working with these college students? We have to remember, sometimes in some of those difficult ethical decision-making, challenging conversations, our students might not have the cognitive ability yet, and it's not their fault. So as we work with them, knowing where they are, building those bridges for them, and helping connect some of the dots as they really work to critically think through some choices that they may have to make. So that's where, again, as the coach, we come in to help bridge that gap. Speaking of bridging gaps, I want to talk a little bit about generational bridges. Within Triangle's membership, we have brothers in all seasons of life, from our collegians to more elderly alumni. And most of our coaches will fall somewhere in between. We've all heard about the millennial generation, Gen X, and baby boomers, but we might still be less familiar with Generation Z. So Gen Z are our current college students and graduating alumni who started arriving at college in 2016. What do we already know about Generation Z? Well, 65% of Gen Z students dislike or only somewhat like making voice phone calls. Many don't like email, which you might already know, because it's viewed as more formal and might take too long between responses. While they crave face-to-face communication, this might look different than it would, 10, 20 years ago, because face-to-face for them might be FaceTime or Zoom. And many might not have had a ton of practice with actual face-to-face in-person contact and might lack some interpersonal skills. They're very career-minded. Obviously, we know social media is a huge part, and they're not necessarily on Facebook except to talk to family. It's these other platforms you see listed that they're using. Friendships are more global. Proximity matters less because of technology, and that is even more true now that everything has gone more virtual in the last couple of years. Gen Z are very close to their family and their parents, more so than previous generations, and really consider their parents to be more like friends and close mentors. Education, employment, and social justice are issues of great importance to this generation. As I said, the first thing up there is career-minded. They are in college to get a degree, find a job, and they are very interested in human equity and social justice. The fear of violence at school is very real. This is something they've always had, and they've never known a world where that wasn't something that they had to consider. And finally, personalized communication is key. So where years ago you might have been able to send out a mass email or just make an announcement at chapter that says, hey, everybody who wants to come to the ice cream social tonight, meet up at 8 p.m. and we'll go over together. That might not work as well anymore. They want a personalized communication, personalized outreach that says, hey, Joe, meet me at 8 p.m. at the flagpole. We're going to walk over to the ice cream social together. They need that individual outreach, individualized communication. And that's important to remember when we're communicating with our students that we're coaching, but also as we're looking at helping them recruit new members. Thanks for joining me for the student development and experiential learning session. And in the next session, we'll talk about the GROW coaching model.